Okay, so now let's take our box and whisker plot and put it together with our other displays. We have the stem and leaf plot, the mean, median, and mode, and here it comes, the box and whisker plot. Now there's two more things I need to add with the box and whisker plot, and that would be the range of my data and then my interquartile range of my data, which is that middle 50% of the data right there. All right, and here's what you do. Range is easy. The range of the data is nothing more than the distance between the max and the min. So the max is 95, the min is 47. Just go 95 minus 47, and you will get 48. Then the interquartile range, or the middle 50%, the range of the middle 50% of the data. Well, that would be the 84 is your extreme on the upper end, and the 65.5 is your extreme on the lower end, so you just go 84 minus 65.5. And that gave me an 18.5, and I did put both definitions there below for you. So there we go. So once you get your box and whisker plot, make sure you tell me the range of the data and then the interquartile range. And that leads to our next data display, which is a histogram, one of my favorites. So for the histogram, okay, you use your stem and leaf plot again, okay? And a histogram is nothing but a fancy bar graph, okay? And you title your graph, and then you need a horizontal axis, all right? And on the horizontal axis, you're going to have percentile in intervals, and that's what a histogram is, okay? And then, look at how I did this now. My first score is 47, so my first interval is 40% to 49, and guess what's going to come next? 50 to 59, and then 60 to 69, and then 70 to 79, and you see how I alternated the colors. And then 80 to 89, and then 90, and you have to go all the way to 100, because you could have a score of 100. And then the vertical axis is the frequency of the data. So draw a vertical axis here and label that frequency. And remember, a good data display, a good graph, you have a title of your display, you have your horizontal axis labeled and titled, and then you have your vertical axis labeled and titled. And this is frequency, which means number of. So all I need to know is, how high do I have to go? I had most of my scores were in the 60s, and I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 scores in the 60s. So I'm going to do 9 hash marks on that vertical axis for frequency. Just like that. Now, let's look at the first interval. How many scores did I have in the 40s? 1. You do a bar graph, label them like that. And if they are by ones, you really don't have to label them, but it's nice to have. Okay, there's my bar graph for my 1 score in the 40s. And then I had 1 score in the 50s. Notice how I alternated the colors again too. And then I had, how many was that? Was that 9 scores in the 60s? So my bar is going to go all the way up to 9. And then in the 70s, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 scores in the 70s. And then I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 scores in the 80s. I like that. And then I only had 1 score in the 90s. There it is right there. Okay? And we're going to do a lot with that as well. But that is a beautiful histogram right there. Okay, so let's put that in our display of all of our data, and here it comes, the histogram. Notice, title, all right, my axes are scaled and labeled, and my beautiful bars. I love it. All right, now the circle graph. Why do I keep thinking these are all my favorite, but I love a circle graph too. And guess what? I think we've used the stem and leaf plot for every other piece of data so far. For the circle graph, I actually used the histogram. So use your histogram to create a circle graph showing the number of students and percent of students who scored at each grade level, A, B, C, D, and F. If necessary, round percents to the nearest tenth. So histogram, let's use it. And there it is right there. Now, my circle graph. What do I need? Well, I'm going to do test scores by grade. All right. So I need to know how many Fs I had and what percent that is. So all you really need to do is find your percent and you put that above each of these bars. So do you guys notice that how many students did not pass? Well, let's do this like this first. We have one student from 40 to 49, and that's 1 out of 25. So I need that as a percent. So can I just go 1 divided by 25? So on your calculator, let's go 1 divided by 25, and that's going to give me 0.04, and you guys should be able to convert a decimal to a percent. Isn't 0.04 going to give me, and here's what I'm doing here, total test scores, there were 25. How many intervals will there be? 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, right there. And now I'm doing the percent for each bar on my histogram, bar graph there. Okay, so percents. And we just did that. The one score in the 40s, that would be 4% of the data. Now, I already know this would also then be that one score in the 50s, 4% of the data. And that one score in the 90s, another 4% of the data right there. Now let's look at our D's right here, scores in the 60s. And there were 9 of those scores, so just go 9 divided by 25. And your calculator will give you a decimal, and I'm getting 0.36, which converts to 36%. And then in the 70s, there were, that looks like 6 to me. So I'm going to go 6 divided by 25, and I'm getting 0.24 or 24% of the data. All right. And then finally, my score is in the 80s, and there were 7. So I'm going to go 7 divided by 25, and that's going to give me 0.28 or 28% of the data. Okay, now in a circle graph, what we have are sectors to represent each of these grades, A, B, C, D, and F. So let's start with the F. There's my sector for all the F's right there. And here's what I did, all right? 4% and 4%, this represents 8% of the students who tested. And so what I want here is I want to label this with, that's my F, and that's 2 students or 8% of the students right there. And now also, you guys, this, you know 1 revolution is 360 degrees. So I'm making this little angle right there, all right, 8% of 360 degrees. And to do that, all I do is go 0.08 times 360. 0.08 times 360. And so this angle should be 28.8 degrees. Now, it doesn't have to be perfect, but I approximated. So that's a little bit less than 30 degrees right there. Now, let's go to my D's, which that was 36% of the data. So I'm going to go 0.36 times 360. 0.36 times 360. And I'm getting a pretty large angle of 129.6 degrees there. So, 90 degrees, you know what a perpendicular looks like. And then, so we got to go, another 40 degrees beyond that? So that's going to be like right out in here somewhere. And again, doesn't have to be perfect. You're just trying to get a general picture. But this would be the percent of the grades that were a D. And you definitely want to label it, but this is your visual right there. So that was how many students and what percent. That is D, which would be 9 students or 36%. There you go. Now, let's go to the C's, all right? And that, again, let's think about this. 24% of the scores were C, all right? So I'm going to go 0.24 times 360 to get my angle, and I'm getting 86.4, so this angle right here will be pretty close to 90 degrees. I tried to make it a little bit less. There you go. Yeah. And that represents all my C's. And again, how many C's were there? There were 6 students, which is 24% of the data. And then let's go to our B's. Okay, so let's find our angle. So see that 28%? Let's go 0.28 times 360. And I'm getting 100.8 degrees. So this angle right here is going to be a little bit more than 90 degrees. So it's going to do something like this. Okay, not perfect, but let's label it with our B's. And one more time, that was 7 students or 28% of the data. Okay, and then you don't have to worry about your sector for the A's because there it is. And that is what? 1 student making up 4% of the data. A. 1 student, 4%, and there is a circle graph. And notice how it's titled. And then I have the sectors for each category, A, B, C, D, or F. And I have each of those sectors labeled with the grade, the number of students, and the percent of students. So let's put that into our displays, and there it is, circle graph. Now, if I remember right, I think we only have one more thing to do here. The Venn diagram. Okay, you see Venn diagrams all the time in science. And here's how they're used. A Venn diagram. We're going to take our stem and leaf plot. There you are again, all right? And we're going to use a Venn diagram to determine how many 2006 scores were odd numbers and multiples of 3. So there's 2 attributes there, the attribute odd number and the attribute multiples of 3. So you draw a rectangle and you label it, these are my 2006 exam scores. And you do a circle for all of the odd scores. And I don't mean odd like different, weird. I mean odd like odd numbers. Okay? And then you do another circle for the multiples of 3. And because there are some numbers that will be odd and multiples of 3, our circles have to intersect. There's got to be a union. And right here will be the scores that are odd and multiples of 3. Okay? And then anything outside of those 2 circles are nothing more than our remaining numbers. Okay, so let's go. 47. You guys know 47 is an odd number. How do you know if it's a multiple of 3? Well, there's a simple rule. If you add the digits, like 4 plus 7 is 11, and if 3 goes into 11 evenly, then 3 has to go into 47 evenly. Now, 3 does not go into 11 evenly, so that means that 47 is just an odd number. Okay, it is not also a multiple of 3, so I didn't put it in here. Now 53, well that's odd, but 5 plus 3 is 8, and 3 does not go into 8 evenly, so 53 is also just an odd number. It's got to go over here somewhere. And then 63, well check this out. 6 plus 3 is 9, and 3 goes into 9 evenly, so 63 is an odd number and a multiple of 3. So I'm going to put all of my 63s in this union, this area right here, which is how many? 1, 2, 3, 4. So I need 4 63s. 1, 2, 3, 4. Doesn't matter where you put them as long as they're in that section. Okay, put them wherever you want in there. And then 68. Well, 68 is not an odd number, but is it a multiple of 3? Well, 6 plus 8 is 14. And 3 does not go into 14 evenly. So that means 68 is one of our remaining numbers because it does not fit either attribute of odd or a multiple of 3. And how many 68s do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I need 4 more. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, remaining numbers. And now we are to the 74s. 74 is not odd. Is it a multiple of 3? Well, 7 plus 4 is 11, and 3 does not go into 11 evenly. So 74s go out here with the remaining numbers. And how many do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Mr. Gibbons?
Okay, that's it. And there's Anthony again, Camden. We were right. Okay,
Mr. Gibbons?
I will get to you, Anthony, as soon as I finish this slide. Okay, so now the next number is 89. Okay, that's odd. And 8 plus 9 is 17. 3 does not go into 17. So, all right, it's not a multiple of 3, but it is odd. So I'm going to put my 89s, 1, 2, 3, 4 of them right here. Or, excuse me, I'm at that 179 I forgot about. Anthony distracted me. I'm sorry, Anthony, I shouldn't pick on you. And 79 is odd, but it is not a multiple of 3, so it goes right there. Can you guys hear Anthony in the background? Oh, it's like being at home and doing this with my dogs. All right, now 84s. Well, 84 is not odd, all right, but isn't 8 plus 4 12, and doesn't 3 go into 12? So 3 would go into 84. So 84 is a multiple of 3, but it is not odd, so it would have to go out here somewhere, and I have 1, 2, 3 of them. And then the 89s, which I talked about already when Anthony came in a second ago. And so 89 is odd, but it is not a multiple of 3 because 8 plus 9 is 17, and 3 does not go into 17 evenly. So I'm going to put my 4 89s, 1, 2, 3, and 4 right there. And there we go. And I have my last one, 95. 95 is odd, but 9 plus 5 is 14, and 3 does not go into 14 evenly, so it's not a multiple of 3. So the 95 is going to go over here. Okay, so there we have it, and this is our Venn diagram right here. And let's use it to answer the question. Use a Venn diagram to determine how many 2006 scores were odd numbers and multiples of 3, and that would be these 463s right there. So I'm going to say 4 2006 scores were odd numbers and multiples of 3. There you go. Okay, so let's put that on our master chart right there, and there's my Venn diagram, and I believe that's all we have. So your job will be the next time we meet, we're going to take another set of test data. In fact, we're going to use the year 2007 and display it with one stem and leaf plot, and with the stem and leaf plot we're going to find the mean, the median, and the mode, and make sure they're labeled just like I did right here. All right, and then we're going to do our box and whisker plot, and with the box and whisker plot we're going to make sure we know the range and the interquartile range, and then we're going to do our others, which would be what? Our histogram, and then our circle graph, and then our Venn diagram. And the Venn diagram will be used to answer the question, showing the scores that are odd and multiples of 3. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm going to close up right now and try to catch Anthony before he takes off on me. Have a great day. Stop.